Good stuff. This is what we're covering today, and this is who will be covering it. So we've got Lorna McGavin from Macmillan Education. She is a commissioning editor from our publishing team, and she is here to talk to us about design thinking. I don't think is she's got lots of questions. She's really interactive with her talk, so I'm not going to ask you anything about design thinking. Design thinking, Dave. Yes, we should get a flag with design thinking on it. What color would it be? Great. So design thinking. I'm not going to go into that because even a single question about that, I think I'm going to start trampling over Lorna's talk. So I will leave you to her to answer questions about design thinking. Claire Bowes will be joining us after that, talking about social media from the perspective of teenagers today. Random question. Does anybody here not use any social media? But yeah, because I know this is not a question she asks. Is anybody here that uses no social media? When I say social media, I mean the platforms like not WhatsApp for this example, because that's kind of just free international texting for me. But things like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, TikTok, X. No. Renata and Dave having a nice chat. Lovely. No, I'd like to come on, carry on. Carry on, Renata and Dave, please. I'd like to see where this conversation leads. You don't use any. No, I'm only joking, Renata. I'm only joking. Please carry on. Not every day you get to chat to Dave Spencer, is it? Okay. Anyway, not many. I think probably all of us use it in some shape or form at some point, but maybe just not very much all the time. Finally, we've got Anna Hasper covering the second half of that talk. So Claire's going to be showing us about what social media looks like for teenagers and how they interact with people and sort of identify themselves within social media. And then Anna's going to be looking at the social and emotional impact of being online as a teenager with a whole host of advice for how to help your teenagers navigate that space in a well way to keep them happy, content, productive, without burning out so young. Bit of a crazy world today, isn't it, in terms of social media for teenagers? It's not something that I think a lot of us experienced when we were teenagers. So I think advice and insight into that would be really, really helpful, hence this event. So that's what we've got coming. We have also got an event in 2 weeks' time. On the 10th of December, we've got three talks aimed at teaching teachers of adults. But I will say this, of any of these three events that we're doing, if you're a teacher of teenagers, the Teaching Adults Day, Educating Adults Day, will be extremely relevant to you as well. If you are looking for more opportunities to develop yourselves, I would say these three talks are still relevant. The first one, not so much. So Lindsay's talk is going to be looking at university students. So kind of 18, 19, 20, 20, 25, up to 25 kind of age group. And for teachers in that arena who are doing an English module, who have been given a course book instead, and someone has said, please teach that course book to these people. And they say, but I haven't got very long with them. I need to cherry pick the right parts from this course to teach them. Lindsay is going to help you cherry pick basically from a course where you don't have time to deliver the whole thing because you're only doing a single module throughout a course of study that might have six or more modules, and how to select the right pieces to teach that particular cohort. After that, this will be more relevant to you if you're teachers of teenagers as well. So Carolina will be talking about. So firstly, Carolina Kotarovich will be talking about supplementing your course book. So I'm sure you've all done it in one time or another, where you've got your course book and it's working really nicely. But there's a couple of things that you'd like to add to that to complement it, to fit with that particular cohort of students that you've got, and make their English language lessons even more relevant to them and maybe more enjoyable because of what they're sort of aiming to do, perhaps. Then we've got a talk from Carolina Krepetetzel, who did this talk at ITEFL in Edinburgh this year. It was absolutely amazing. A really, really interesting talk. It talks about information retrieval, short-term, medium-term, long-term memory, and it's all wrapped up within the ELT classroom environment. So really, really interesting talk, really cutting edge research that she's talking about there. So please do come along to that. Really relevant to you, not just for teachers of adults, this event. Come along if you want. Register now. I'll pop this up. Hold on. Doobie-doo. Gabby, if you wouldn't mind popping up the resources, I can't find them. If you could just pop them up. macmillanenglish.com, and you'll find the events very easily. macmillanenglish.com. Register now. Okay, before you ask, you've got certificates coming. They'll be with you within 2 weeks. They'll come by email. If you are watching on social media, if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, you'll get them. You won't get them. Sorry, you need to register, but you can still register now. macmillanenglish.com to do that. But we can't give it to you if we don't know that you're watching. So please do come along. Sorry, please do go to the websites to register. Thank you, Gabby. That's where you can register. Gabby's link, and there's also a little link at the bottom. Your virtual goodie bag will come at the end with this design thinking poster. So just keep an eye out for that. 2 weeks for that certificate. Bear in mind. Lorna McGavin, I can see you. I don't think they can see you just yet. Are you there?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, just fine.
Great.
Just wait. Oh, you can see. Great. So I'm going to pin that. There we go. How are you, Lorna?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry, I realised that I'm not actually looking at you at the moment. That's because my notes are on another screen. So hope I'm not being rude. I will turn and look towards you once I start.
No, that's fine. So you're looking at me at the moment, are you?
Yeah, I can see
Oh, right. There you go.
the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fine. Absolutely fine. I'll get over it. So, Lorna, you work for Macmillan. When did you start? I asked you this earlier, but when did you start?
Yeah, so I started. I had to think about it when you asked me earlier, but it was about 13 years ago. I started in the adult department as a development editor, but I've been in the secondary department, so focusing on teens for the last 10 years, which I feel is my spiritual home. I love working with teens and developing materials for them. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me today.
You're very welcome, Lorna. Thanks so much for putting it together. I've got a question for you though before I hand over, because it's come up and it does come up. People want to know this. Any advice for anyone who wants to get into publishing these courses, if they want to start getting involved in editorial and that sort of area?
Yeah, absolutely. We in terms of editorial, we often recruit experienced teachers who are looking for a career change. We also work with experienced teachers to develop materials. So we might, uh, if we meet a teacher who's interested, we might get them to do a sample, maybe starting with worksheets and then building up their experience and yeah. But do get in touch if it's something you're interested in. We're always looking for new contacts, both freelance and in-house. So.
Thanks, Lorna. We've got a LinkedIn page which is always up to date if we're looking for anyone to join the team. So do keep an eye on the LinkedIn as well if you're interested in joining. I'll hand over to you, Lorna. Have a great session, and I'll see you in about 30 minutes.
Thanks very much. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully Gabriella can approve that request that's just gone through. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be able to face you now. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, okay, great. And I'm just going to get the chat so I can keep an eye on. Yes, thank you. That's a great response. Thanks everyone for confirming. It's a little bit disorienting being behind, being a presenter and not appreciate that you've given the time to come along and to show your interest. So as Will mentioned, I'm Lorna McGavigan. I'm a commissioning editor at Macmillan. For those of you less familiar with the educational publishing industry, a commissioning editor's role is to research emerging trends and market needs, and then we work with ELT specialists to create materials that respond to those trends and needs. So a lot of development work goes into our course books. It's a long process. and we work with wonderful experts to produce material. Before I worked in publishing, like many of my colleagues, I taught English, and I still regularly visit schools to observe classes and understand different teaching scenarios, which is one of the lovely parts of the job. I'm based, as I've seen you all tell me where you're all based. So I'm actually based in the northeast of Scotland. I don't know if anyone else, we've got anyone else in Scotland or the northeast there. It's 3 o'clock here and there's snow outside and it's about 3 degrees. So thank you, just to give you a bit of geographical context about where I am. So I'm going to be talking about design thinking and how bringing design thinking principles into the classroom can help students build skills for the future. So I'm going to be asking you for your thoughts at various points throughout this presentation. So please do use the chat function to give your ideas. I want to hear them, even just to know you're engaged in the presentation. And if you have any questions, I might not see them in the chat if I'm looking at slides and there's a lot of input, but will be monitoring the chat and we'll pull out any questions and make a note of them so that we maybe have time to go through those at the end. Okay, so let's get started. So jobs of the future. When we're thinking about a new course, we're always trying to understand what teens need. And in 5 to 10 years' time, today's teens are going to be starting out on their careers. It's very difficult at the moment to escape headlines about the impact of technology on the future of jobs as we go into the 4th industrial revolution. And AI seems to have accelerated that discussion tenfold. So I just want to look at a couple of headlines. So Demis Hassabis on our AI future, it'll be 10 times bigger than the Industrial Revolution and maybe 10 times faster. So Demis Hassabis is the CEO of Google DeepMind, which is an AI research lab. He's also a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry for his work on AI. So it's interesting to hear what he's saying about it. AI is already replacing thousands of jobs per month, report finds. Gen Z faces job apocalypse as global firms prioritize AI over new hires, report says. AI coming for your job, it may be stopping you being hired at all. It's all quite daunting. And I imagine anyone going into the world of work at the moment maybe having doubts in their mind about some of the career opportunities. So I wondered if I could ask you to think about some of the human skills that you feel technology won't be able to replace. So thinking about skills that we won't be able to fully automate. And if you have any ideas, could ask you to write them in the chat. Empathy, thank you, Anna Maria. Yeah, that's a great example. And also the first one that came to mind, rapport, yeah, great. Emotion and the encouragement, empathy and non-violent communication, humor. Yeah, I don't know about AI sense of humor. I've not had great experiences with it. Psychotherapy, psychology, law, values, facial expression, feelings, soft skills, social connection. I think creativity, yes, thank you. That's such an important one. And we're going to be talking about that. Validating emotions. Yeah, so there are no right or wrong answers. I don't think we really know what AI is going to be able to do yet. But thank you for all your great ideas and contributions there. I think overall there's a sense of optimism, if you agree, that we won't be fully replaced. And I've thought about this a lot myself and even asked AI what it thought would be a good answer to that question. It came back with AI can simulate empathy, but it doesn't feel. I would caveat that with yet, because it gets very close sometimes to making you feel as though it's real. And AI generates content based on patterns and data, but it can't come up with original ideas. Again, who knows what's going to happen in the future? And someone's saying AI might take the place of teachers, but I don't fully agree. AI still needs advanced skills to understand whether a student has actually grasped the subject or not. Yeah, it's a very good point. And a good one for us as teachers. So for me, the way we support students in the future is by emphasising the human skills they bring and giving them confidence in those skills. So thank you, Jana. Don't worry about being late. Lovely of you to come. Yes, somebody is just saying that there was a prediction that there may be no traditional teachers in 2025. I'm glad that's not happened yet, although I have read about university courses being taught through AI modules, but there seems to be, I don't think that's been fully sort of reviewed yet. Anyway, what I want to ask you next about what do you know about design thinking? How many of you are familiar with it? So if you could read the statements, oh, you're ahead of me. If you could read the statements and say 1, 2, or 3, I've heard of it. I've never heard of it. I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. I've heard of it and I would like to know more. I'm seeing a lot of 1s and 2s. Got a 3 from Zana there. Okay, thank you. I mean, I think I was expecting to see a lot of 1s and 2s, and great that there's a few 3s in there as well. I think it's a relatively new term outside of the world of product development. So let's learn a little bit more. So what is design thinking? Design thinking methodology, it originated in top tech firms like Google and IBM and Apple, but it is now being used more widely in other industries. So leading educational institutions like MIT, Harvard, the London Business School, and many more are offering courses in design thinking, and you can pay thousands to attend one of these courses. But in its essence, it's a 5-step approach to solving problems, and it puts the user at the center of the process and focuses on solutions. There are different variations, but we developed our approach following these 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And I'll talk you through each of those stages shortly. But first of all, so I think, yes, somebody's still answering the question. Thank you very much. So values such as soft skills are things which AI will lack in the future. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to look at an example of design thinking in practice. So there are plenty of commercial examples of products, physical products and software developed using design thinking principles, but it can be applied to other areas of design and planning. These pictures are of the Royal Hospital for Children in Glasgow, Scotland, which is where I'm from. It was redesigned in 2024, and these are just a small glimpse of the changes. Please do look up this project. It's very moving, and it's a very moving and ambitious project. And it's all led by the incredible Dr. Alison Walker, who you can see pictured. So the redesign followed a process follows a user-focused design process, which involved interviews with the people who used the hospital, so the children, the parents, and the staff. And it was through this that the design team were able to understand what would make people feel comfortable and welcomed in an environment which is usually clinical and intimidating. I don't know if you've been to a hospital lately, but they tend not to be the most welcoming places. For example, older children felt that the existing artwork on walls was a bit too babyish. So now the murals are designed for children of all ages, with different types of illustrations at different eye levels, and the children can see themselves reflected in them. One child said, "When I was last here, there was nothing to cheer you up. But as you can see, the seating is now much more interactive for imaginative play. And there's even a toy museum in the waiting room where there used to be a blood fridge, so it's much more child-focused." It was noted that the large red hand on the operating theatre door was adding to kids' anxiety. So it's a really small detail that may never have been picked up on were it not for these user-focused interviews. And to cater to parents, a wee room, so wee is Scots for small, so a small room with soft lighting was added for parents to use whilst their children were in surgery, which could be a very difficult time for them. And I just think this is such a lovely example of how design thinking can be used to help improve the society that we live in. So what does design thinking have to do with our students' futures and the 2030s? So as discussed, there's an increasing importance on the human skills that AI can't yet replicate, as you listed in the chat earlier. Can design thinking help develop these? Technology is advancing at a rapid pace. Graduate job markets are highly competitive. Many graduates are lacking key employability skills, so critical thinking, communication, collaboration, resilience, innovation, and so on. Further education offers a lot of subject matter input, but it doesn't always prepare students holistically for the world of work. We need to be helping students build skills now to help them thrive in a rapidly changing world. And I always think language learning and life skills are so closely linked, and design thinking is just one way of giving students a structure to help them approach problems with confidence now that can also be applied in further study and in work. So we're sort of changing their mindset, how they approach problems. So at Macmillan, we worked with leading ELT specialists to adapt design thinking methodology for the classroom, making sure that the cognitive level was appropriate for teenagers and the staging was appropriate for and achievable in the English classroom. So this is an example of a project where students are tasked with designing a welcome pack for students, for new students at their school. And we found the staging of design thinking just really lent itself to project work in the classroom, providing a relatable goal, a real problem, and a structure that supports students develop their ideas step by step and increase their confidence in their ideas. And I'd like to talk you through today the structure of a design thinking approach to this project. So we're going to be a wee bit interactive for the next couple of slides, but the first step in design thinking is always empathy with the user. And I think in general, the link between empathy and language learning is just so important. You can't learn a language without empathy towards other cultures. Would you agree with that? So you can't learn a language without empathy towards other cultures. Okay, I'm getting some agreement. Thank you. I'd just like to check you're still there. So the focus is on understanding the user's perspective. And you can use tools such as empathy maps to understand what users say and think and feel and do. In the project example, the situation is scenario-led to help structure the lesson. So students are given an example of a school and different perspectives of the students there. They then respond to prompt questions, which are noted as annotations on the empathy map on the right. So who are they helping and empathizing with? What kinds of problems do new students at the school face? What does the school do to help new students? And what are the problems with the information the school gives about the local area? But that is scenario-led. Today, I just wanted to hear from you. I would like you to imagine you are going to design a welcome pack for new students. And to start with, I just want you to think back to when you were new to a job or a class or a school. This could be as a child or an adult. I don't think the feelings necessarily change. How did you feel? What kind of worries or problems did you face? And what helped you? So the questions are on the slide in the yellow box. If you could have a wee think about that and share any thoughts in the chat, if you're happy to do so. You don't have to answer all the questions, and I'll give you a few minutes to think about this. Thank you. So thinking about a time you were new to a school, a job, or a class, how did you feel? What kind of worries or problems did you experience and what helped you? Nervous, awkward, scared, overwhelmed, nervous, a bit lost, fitting in with teachers and scared by new programs. I mean, that sounds like the experience of an adult, but yeah, it doesn't change, does it? Stressed, self-conscious and uncertain, shy, overwhelmed, defensive, insecure, butterflies, needing a person you can rely on, ask for help, worried, reluctant, bit scared, bit of bullying, having good friends there, shy, not knowing where to go, where things were, what was allowed. That's a really interesting one, I think. Being scared of what's going to happen, lack of confidence, frustrated, underconfident, not having the information that you need. I mean, it's really interesting. My son has just started primary school and he was very excited to start primary school. And the older children prepared a video tour of the school with lots of information for the new starters, like what kind of lunch you could have, how to follow the safe route through the car park, and a short clip or photo, an introduction of the other new starters. That really helped. That just having that knowledge just really helped him. But thank you for sharing your experiences. This is the input we need for the next stage. But before we move on, I wanted to reflect on the value of empathy as a human skill. It's one of the first ones that somebody mentioned. It was mentioned several times in the chat earlier. So the benefits of empathy. When we are empathetic, we listen and understand others' viewpoints. We're able to hold multiple perspectives. Not everyone's experience is the same. Not everyone will be scared going into a new school. They might just want to know that information or have that information about what to do in different situations. Accepting of difference, it helps you be accepting of differences of opinion. So if you are able to understand where someone is coming from, helps you advocate for others and it helps you improve cultural awareness. Thank you for those added points there. Okay, so the next stage is the define stage. So at this point, the goal is for students to summarize the problem in a short statement. And to do so, they need to understand the problem to be able to express it in a way that is clear. So building on their communication and oracy skills and showing that they can understand other viewpoints and clearly define and communicate a problem. Because remember, they're putting themselves into the position of someone else. So they want to understand the problem from someone else's perspective. So thinking about your answers to the last questions, about how you felt in a new situation, let's try and better define the problem together. So what are we doing and why? We want to summarize this in a short statement to make sure everyone really understands the problem that we are trying to solve with our welcome pack. So how would you complete the sentence shown in yellow? We are designing a welcome pack for new students too. You can pop your thoughts in the chat and take a few minutes to do it. To feel safe to be themselves, to feel safe and comfortable, to feel like they're not alone, to help them feel more confident, to mingle together and become comfortable, to feel relaxed and safe. I mean, it's interesting, the answers were coming up here. I can see that they're very related to what you put in the chat earlier, whereas the previous group had this slightly more mixed feelings, and so they came up with slightly different aims for their welcome pack. Like, for example, to be able to find their way around the school and local area, to know where to go for help settling in. So a couple of the possible answers that I came up with might be to show students that they're welcome and the school wants to help them become part of the community, or to help students see what activities are available so they can make friends more easily, or make students excited about joining the school. There are lots of different directions you could take this welcome pack in. Okay, so I won't ask you to do the next stage, perhaps in a longer session, but I'm sure you would have plenty of ideas here, but we would be here all day. So at this stage, we generate ideas. The stage is called ideate, and the word ideate is a term I've seen most often used in the tech industry, but it just means to generate ideas. This is the point where students will work together in groups, and one of the key principles of design thinking is the value placed on diversity in groups. So getting students with different skills and perspectives to work together and lean into their strengths. So I'll give you a moment to read the quote. So in general, diverse teams generate a wider range of thinking and ideas and create better innovation outcomes than groups of people with similar mindsets and cultural backgrounds. And that's from Design Thinking for Student Projects by Morgan and Jasperson. And they go on to say, another advantage of diversity is the bringing together of different knowledge sets. And the resulting idea is likely to be something quite different and better than any of them could have developed individually. And this is supported by, sorry, I've just made my notes into tiny size. So this is supported by research. So there was a recent study by McKinsey, one of the big four consultancy companies, and the study showed that companies with more diversity at board level outperform those with less diversity by quite a significant amount. So I think it is really important to think about this. So once students have really defined the problem, they can then start to think of solutions in their groups. So this may include a research stage, but the focus is on the generation of ideas. There's no judgment or feedback on ideas at this stage. It's a safe space. There are a range of ideation or brainstorming techniques that you can use with your class to come up with ideas, and it's good to introduce these to students and allow them to explore them. For example, you might want to focus on how to create a safe space for ideas, or different ways of using sticky notes, or explore different collaborative apps, or different brainstorming strategies like plussing, for example, which is where you enhance someone else's idea with a response beginning with yes and rather than yes but, so a supportive development of an idea. Students will then debate and agree on which ideas to further develop. And the next stage is to select and prototype an idea, which is your sort of typical project output. So we normally think of a prototype as a 3D model or a basic software, but this is quite ambitious for the English classroom. So in our scenario, it could take any form. It might be a sketch or a poster presentation, a physical prototype, an outline, or a group presentation. It doesn't need to be perfect, and the emphasis needs to be that this is a first attempt and that students will get feedback and the opportunity to improve. And finally, to the last stage, the test stage, which I think is one of the most useful in terms of skills development. So Google's CEO of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, this is the person I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, he stated this year that the key skill for the future is going to be learning how to learn, as the only constant is going to be change. And the test stage is where students present their solution for feedback. It's really important that they go in with the knowledge that they may still be able to improve their proposal, perhaps by adding something to it or adapting it. That's a positive. We want students to develop a growth mindset and an openness to learning how to learn. To do that, it's very important that the feedback skills are developed too. Feedback needs to be given and received constructively to allow students to reflect on their work and want to improve. So in a typical classroom, peer feedback would be ideal here, provided everyone understands how to give that feedback in a positive way. And I just want to conclude this slide with a quote by Henry Ford. And there are a lot of people saying similar things, but this is just one I picked out that seemed to summarize it. But failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, and this time more intelligently. And I think that helping students build that mindset from a young age will help them become resilient young adults. So just to some final thoughts on human skills. Design thinking can offer a structure to project work, so a structure that can be used in industry and to improve society, as an example of the children's hospital that I showed you earlier. It relies on human skills to be successful, human skills like seeing the world through other perspectives, being able to interpret and communicate ideas, work collaboratively in diverse groups, see feedback as a way to improve, and see challenges as things that can be overcome and develop a growth mindset. So thank you so much for listening today and contributing your ideas. You've been a very engaged group and I've really appreciated it. I hope you found it interesting and you feel like you know a little bit more about design thinking and how you might use it in the classroom. I'll be here, I think, for another 5 minutes if we've got time with Will. So if you have any questions and you'd like to discuss further, please do stick around, but I'm sure you will want to stick around anyway because Claire and Anna have some really fantastic talks coming up that are so relevant to anyone working with teenagers. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Thanks for putting the talk together a lot. And thanks for being here with us as well. I know it was it's not kind of what you were hired for, and it's really great that you're able to do this for us. So thank you very much. If you have got, we haven't got any questions actually, Lorna. I think everyone is entirely clear on design thinking. And yeah, if you have got a question for Lorna, I didn't catch it, so please do pop it back. But I think we're good for now.
Okay.
There will be a PDF of the webinar. If you don't mind, Lorna, we'll be giving the PDF to the audience for this so that they can go through it again.
Not all.
Okay. Any other key texts other than the Morgan Jasperson one that you recommend, that you would recommend?
Yeah, there was another book that I found very useful. It was called Design Thinking in the Classroom by David Lee, which is perhaps the Morgan Jasperson one is maybe more targeted at those working in further education. But it is very interesting because it has sort of case studies and interviews with people from industry. So if you want to get a sense of what skills industry are looking for at the moment, then it's a good one. Design Thinking in the Classroom is more for the teen scenario and teaching in the classroom, but it's not ELT specific, it covers sort of general secondary
education. Do you think there's going to be a huge difference?
Sorry?
Do you think there'll be a large difference between the two?
The two books? Well,
between teaching design thinking in a secondary environment, specific or generally, or in an ELT environment.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think I actually think design thinking really lends itself to language learning because those skills are so important. We have this great opportunity to teach life skills in English in a way that other subjects might not always be able to. So yeah, for me, I do think there's a difference. Yeah. I see Dave's also recommending design thinking.
He has, Dave. You are recommending it, but you're recommending it to hosts and panelists only. If you wouldn't mind resharing that to everyone, so everyone can see your last comment. How can we support? Chengiz Herdem is asking, how can we support learners who struggle with open-ended tasks or creative confidence during the design thinking process?
I mean, I think design thinking is really supportive for those who struggle with creative confidence because the emphasis is absolutely not on the output, it is on the process. So it is about speaking to users and finding out what they want. So you've got something to base your creative output on. It can really structure a project, and sometimes that is lacking in projects. So I think that is really a lovely structure to bring to projects.
Brilliant, thank you. All right, thanks so much, Lorna. I think, hold on, one more in the Q&A. They're all coming in now. What's the difference between design thinking and differentiated instruction?
Could you just define what you mean by differentiated instruction? Do you mean sort of a universal design for learning approach?
Yeah, there's confusion between these two concepts, isn't there? Earlier
Yes.
we had that, and this is not the first time we've heard of it.
Um, so I think with differentiated instruction, that's maybe to appeal to learner variability in the classroom,
Mhm.
if I've understood correctly. I'm sorry, I can't see who raised the
Yes,
question
Malika. Yeah,
with the
yeah.
chat, but uh, yeah, I mean, I would say it's quite different. I mean, design thinking, with its emphasis on inclusion and diversity, can really help students with different strengths work together, and I think that is something that's really important. And whereas differentiated instruction maybe has a, if I've understood it correctly, is maybe about giving different uh, well, sorry, I'm not sure.
Instruction,
Yeah,
tasks,
yeah, yeah,
and
different tasks. Whereas I
activities,
think
and
design thinking is about working together and taking advantage of variabilities and diversity.
Mhm. Brilliant. Thank you, Lorna. I hope this answers your question, Malika. All right. Well, I'll let you go. You've got a bit of a
Thank,
break now between this and the last one. So have a nice break, and we'll
okay.
see you in a while.
Thanks again, everyone. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Lorna. Right. We're going to move straight on. Going to share my screen first. Introduce our next speaker. Claire, I can see you.
Hello.
There you are. I don't think they can see you just yet. But while we're waiting, let me just speak your life story before they can. Oh, they can see you now. There you go. Welcome,
Hello.
Claire.
It's me.
It's you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Big day. Thank you
Yes.
for being here for all. We do it 3 times in case you didn't realize, everyone. We do this 3 times live, just to make sure everyone gets the same sort of opportunity to see a live thing rather than recordings, you know.
Mhm.
So ELT career started in 2018. You launched your social media journey with Ingly Insta. Can you tell us
Yes.
about your Instagram channel?
If I must, yeah, so I started this around 2020, this account. Um, it was due to the pandemic. I was teaching a lot more online and I wanted a way to interact a little bit more with students. So I decided to go onto social media and kind of teach little small short form pieces of content on it, like reinforcing points I made in classrooms.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I started seeing like people I didn't know following. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. I didn't realize like how many people found value in like short form, bite-sized ELT content
Mhm.
until I started there. And yeah, it's no looking back since. It's been amazing.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, obviously I'm following you there. It's amazing, everyone. If you want to watch it, it's great content for your students as well. I would absolutely recommend joining Claire's Insta channel. And we've worked with you on several things now, haven't we, Claire? And it's been a
Oh,
great pleasure.
yeah, it's been lovely. It's been lovely, and I hope people find it useful. I really enjoy seeing those like nice comments where people tell me like it helped them towards something. It's just a really, I don't know, pleasant experience when
Well,
you're
it's
creating
rewarding, isn't it, to
content.
see that you're having
Yeah,
some, what you're saying has impact and yeah, sort of
exactly.
ripples. All right.
Exactly.
Have a good talk, everyone. See you later, Claire. Bye.
Bye. And hello, everyone. How are y'all doing today? Hope we're doing good. It's the afternoon. Usually I get a little sleepy in the afternoon, but not today. I'm ready. I'm ready to show you some slides all about what social media looks like for teens today. Now, I don't know if anyone can remember their first experience with social media. We're thinking way back. Did we have social media when we were teenagers ourselves? Hmm. I think this morning we were talking a little bit about it, and I can see some answers. MySpace, I recall that one. Absolutely. Yes. Social media has definitely changed a lot. I did have social media as a teenager myself. However, it's completely different today, right? How is it different? Well, we'll get into that. There's a lot going on. I can see some people saying Tumblr, MySpace, they have Facebook. Yahoo, interesting. There was a platform called Bebo back in the day. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But we're going to take a quick look at what kind of platforms we have now and have a think about which ones we're using ourselves. I've got a few on screen now. So let me know in the chat, which ones are you using? Which ones do you come in contact with on a daily basis? Are there any that you don't use? We've got a few here. Hello, welcome. I see people using Instagram, a lot of people using Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Oh, we're seeing more people using TikTok, which is an interesting one. Are you using it to post content or using it just to view? Facebook, lots of Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, bit of both. Interesting. Absolutely. Yes, there's a lot going on. Social media is huge. There's lots of different places to be online with social media nowadays in comparison to when it first started out. So statistically, it's quite interesting because we're seeing that YouTube is topping the list for a lot of teens from this survey. But TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat are also there. And I didn't see anyone mention Snapchat in the comments. So that's very interesting. It's a whole platform maybe a lot of people don't have contact with on a daily basis. So it's massive for most teens, but maybe we don't have the insight towards it. Now, also, this is a really interesting point to make, right? Because we're talking about being online. We talk about ourselves using social media, right? Well, when we looked at this survey here, we can see that nearly half of all teens on the survey are using social media almost constantly, and even more checking several times a day. Now, you might be doing this yourself as well. I don't know, how often are you checking in on social media? Yeah, I know I think I'm probably on the several times a day to almost constantly myself. So for teens, it's very, very popular. It's very high, like it's quite surprising, but also not in a way, right? Now, obviously we want to get into that world and kind of have a look at, what that looks like for teens. So I'm going to test you a little bit here, and we're going to have a look at some terms that will come up as we go through this presentation. So how many of these terms do you know? Any new to you? We have FYP, meaning, have a little think. We've got DM, possibly know that one. Yes, FYP is for you page. It's things that appear in the feed that might be suitable for you. DM, direct message. Yeah, you've got main feed. This is going to be things that you see when you're scrolling. Some people are like streaks, snaps. That's okay. We'll cover that in a moment. Stories you might know as well if you're using Instagram or any of these platforms. And close friends, we mean in terms of social media. Okay, a lot of people are confused by doom scrolling. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Let's dive into the world of social media. What are we looking at for teens? So to get us cracking, getting us started, the public and private persona of teens online, it looks a little different to maybe what we might think. Simply put, we're talking about the difference between public posting versus private posting. Public posting, this is where you're sharing with everyone or a much larger audience. So people who are following you or that have the potential to see the content that you share. Private posting then is where you're sharing content like videos, images with smaller selected groups of people, your kind of trusted circle. And with teens, it's really a deliberate strategy, okay, because they're navigating between these two kind of desires or these competing pressures that they have, which is the need to always be online, to be always connected, and this need for privacy and their own space. So these two things can work together. Now I'm gonna get you to have a look at this, and in the comments, I want you to think about which image would be posted publicly and which would go to a private space. But I want you to think why. Very important. Let's see what you have. A or B. Which one would go to a private space and which would go public? Don't forget why. That's the most important part. I won't be offended because these are pictures of me. Lovely. Okay, I see a lot of people saying A. Oh, we're having a little debate in the comments. A is, a lot more people are saying A is public. Yes. B, potentially private. Interesting. Yes, okay. B is more fun, we see. People, a fun photo, absolutely. Yeah, people say it could depend on your audience, but think about like as a teen, if you were like, okay, one has to go to my public feed and one has to go to a group of friends. Yeah, some people are saying public, A is public because it's more aesthetically pleasing, maybe matches the feed, absolutely. Private, B because it's more fun for friends, absolutely. Someone's like, both could be public. I don't see anything wrong. Fair, fair. Yeah, I think someone here has said, yes, that teens would maybe more go for polished content. And you're totally on the right call there, because when we think about public posting, and especially nowadays, teens are very cautious about what they're posting publicly. Yeah, they're very aware of their digital footprint, right? So in comparison to previous generations, they understand that posts last forever. So they are very aware of what they post kind of has to have this polished, curated look to it. Even a caption on a post like this would take a while to construct. There's also this feeling of pressure for engagement. So think about, if you're posting anything, you have this feature, which is your analytics. So you can see how many people have liked it, how many comments are on it. We might compare it to our friends, how well they're posted, compare it to ourselves, how well a previous post has done. So there's a lot of pressure there for a piece of content to do well. And because it's directly related to you, it's almost like they're putting it out into the world to be kind of judged and almost graded. So there is a ton of pressure there. And also this fear of judgment, because maybe they're worried their peers might leave some kind of negative feedback or maybe be silent. That could be potentially it as well. They might worry about judgment from teachers, parents, strangers, if it's going out really publicly. So there's a lot of fear that can lead to social anxiety. So, we're looking at public spaces as more polished, as we said, absolutely. And then what does that mean for private spaces? Well, private would be kind of smaller group chats amongst close friends and platform-specific closed sharing. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in a moment. And then we also have things like micro communities. So these are like spaces you can exist online within your niches. And what we're noticing is private spaces and private posting is more real. You're going to see more authentic self on these spaces. They're definitely ones where you can be a little bit more, I suppose, silly and kind of do what you want a little bit more when you think about posting content. Now, platforms and private posting, there's a lot of features now on platforms that allow for this. I don't know if you've seen any of these features before. Yeah, there might be a few. You might have seen a few of these features before. So close friends, for example, we mentioned this at the start. This is where you can make, or any user can manually create a list of what we would call like a digital inner circle in a way. You're selecting specific groups of people to see the content you post. So this can be close friends, this can be people that you feel will appreciate the content you're posting. Direct messages as well. This can be on any platform. Direct messages, these of course would be kind of almost the original private space. We all have contact with direct messaging, and this is where you would see more like a trusted form of communication. It's probably the one that teens feel is most likely or the least likely to be broadcast publicly. Now, Snapchat, as I mentioned at the start, not a lot of people are talking about Snapchat. So snaps, for example, are messages you can send that disappear once you open them. So for example, you take a picture of yourself, you send it to your friends, they open it, they see the message, and then it disappears. That would be a snap. Then streaks, this is a really interesting concept, a really interesting feature on Snapchat. They're called snap streaks or just streaks. And it would be a number that is representing how many consecutive days that two friends have exchanged at least one direct photo or video within 24 hours. And the reason this has so much power is that it kind of is a way of showing strength or commitment to a friendship. So it's a really big form of kind of social currency with teens. It's very interesting. And then of course we have direct messaging on TikTok and WhatsApp, and features are always being implemented on these sites as well. So thinking about that, we're always seeing platforms catering to these private posting moments. Super interesting. I could talk about this all day, but we don't have too long. So why does private space, or why do private spaces matter to teens? Well, we look at it like a space for exploration, right? They don't have to commit to a really polished identity in these spaces. They can try out different things, they can test boundaries. They don't have to worry that everyone is watching them in these spaces. It also then provides that freedom from perfection, right? So the anxiety that they might have around, posting something publicly, they don't have to worry about that. The filter comes off in these spaces. They can be themselves, they can be silly, authentic, emotional. They can share that unedited version of themselves without the worry that there will be some kind of social repercussions. Of course, safety is another factor. So definitely this limited audience, their close friends, they can kind of work around that risk of judgments of, having their content viewed by people outside that circle. There's also the aspect of control then as well, where they can, decide who to let into their real world, who they can show those authentic moments with and be vulnerable with. They trust the people they share those things with in these private spaces. And then there's an ease of use again. So you're not editing a picture, you're not selecting the perfect moment. There's an immediacy to the content they share in these spaces. In fact, there's like a term where they say they're spamming their friends. I don't know if anyone has heard that before, but it just simply is you're sending a lot of posts throughout the day to your friends, like pictures, things you're up to, messages. And they feel comfortable to do that in these private spaces. So there's a lot of reasons for them to kind of gravitate more towards those private posting moments. Now, we talked a lot about posting, but not everyone posts online, right? I know sometimes I just prefer to see what's out there, right? So this concept then would be more so this idea of silent consumption. Okay, any thoughts what silent consumption might be in terms of what we're doing online? Let me know in the chat. Silent consumption. Sounds like scrolling reels. Good points. Yeah, we're on the right track, everyone. Exactly. We're thinking about consuming content without visible interaction. All right. So this would be scrolling, watching, reading, but not commenting, liking, or posting. Okay. So they are taking in a lot of content, but they're not interacting with it. What could this look like? Well, on platforms like TikTok, this could be you're scrolling and maybe you're saving videos. YouTube, then you're watching long form content and you're not commenting. Snapchat, that would be viewing snaps, like we said, those disappearing messages, but not sending any in return. And then Instagram, this would be like watching a story, but not liking it. So, we're saying there's no visible social action at all. Okay, you can't see what they're interacting with. Now, just because someone is silent, it doesn't mean they're passive. There's a lot they can get from doing this, right? So something like staying up to date with friends. This would be, where we're looking at maybe what our friends are up to, what they're posting, the details of their lives, like where they went, what they're up to, what they're passionate about. And it's almost like a form of maintenance for their friendships, right? And there's the potential to be left out of in real life conversation if we don't know what's going on, if we don't stay connected with our friends. It would be kind of the main method they have of checking in with their friends. I know I do this as well. Then we have this idea of observing how peers behave. So maybe in the past, if we think back to when we were teens, how did we understand what social norms were? We maybe looked to other people, right? So they're doing the same thing digitally. It's looking at like how people are dressing, how people are talking, how they're behaving, how people are interacting online, and kind of making judgments on that, Then we have social inclusion. So this would be, again, this idea of being aware of what's going on online. So checking in on trends, culturally significant moments, memes. And again, if they don't know or aren't up to date with anything that's going on or viral trends, sounds, they might not be able to participate in conversations that happen in the real world outside of the digital space. And then, of course, another thing that they could use these moments of exploration for are kind of identity experimentation and being creative. So again, it's a way of them to discover things, music, art, fashion, kind of testing it out, sampling it themselves by watching and saving content that they feel works for them. It's a way of them kind of experimenting before maybe taking on a new skill or aesthetic or idea and bringing it out into their real world. So silent doesn't necessarily mean passive. And it's very important to be aware of this because, when we talk about things like public and private posting, public has a lot of pressure behind it. And maybe there isn't that awareness that should be there around that. And then how much private spaces really mean to teens. There's a big weight behind those and how important they are to teenagers. And then, of course, teens can still be influenced, even though maybe they're not interacting visibly, they're still consuming content. And we do have to watch out for things like scrolling endlessly. I mentioned a word at the start, which was doom scrolling. And this is this concept of watching and consuming a lot of content, but then the content becomes increasingly negative. And that can really have a serious impact on teens. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, don't want to be too scary, so we can talk a little bit about what we can do. So one of the biggest things is, even though teens might be gravitating towards more private posting, we want to remind teens that private doesn't mean completely private. It just means less public. So understanding that private stories, group chats, direct messages, they can be screenshot, shared, or taken out of context. So giving them an idea of how to navigate those spaces in a safe way. Of course, discussion and open discussion is always really important because teens are going to be online. It's important for them to feel like they can talk about it, chat about what they see. So inviting that dialogue. Simple questions like, what kind of content inspires you? Is there a trend you're enjoying right now? Or how is your feed making you feel lately? These questions open up discussions with teens. And then, of course, because we maybe remember a time where being on social media wasn't a thing. Teens nowadays have always had social media. It's always existed. They might not have been using it, but it has always been there. So giving them advice on how to develop healthy habits and boundaries with social media. Encouraging them to notice when it's starting to feel draining rather than enjoyable. Like showing them how to do screen-free days, being more mindful with their scrolling, or even showing them delay apps, which can kind of pop up when you click into something to give you like a moment to decide if you actually want to go in. So for example, if I pick up my phone, I might end up on social media about 10 videos deep before I realize I wanted to check the weather. So delay apps can kind of give you a second to go, wait, do I really want to go in here right now? Okay, I'm very aware of the time, but I have a lot more I want to say. So let's get to it. One thing that I think is super valuable and super important to know before we end today is I want to talk a little bit about the algorithm and what you see on your feeds. Got a little work for you now, though. I want you to take a look at these videos, a little screenshot of these videos, and I want you all now to decide what these videos have in common. Let me know in the chat. It's a hard one. No idea. That's funny. Positivity, very nice. Personal life. View count, interesting. Celebration. They're all very different. We've got clothes, outdoors, dogs, something to related to Dublin. Yeah, it's a hard one, right? Memorable times. Okay, we're on the right track. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. These are all videos that have come across my For You page, okay? These are videos that I've been shown and that I like, yeah? So, why am I telling you this? Well, I really want you to be aware, and that way you can make others aware, especially teens, about how this works, right? So the algorithm works like this. It collects information, right? So each teen's feed is shaped by what they like, what they comment on, what they share, what they watch, what content they skip. And simply put, that's the more dog videos you like my feed, the more dog videos you will be shown. Okay. It collects that information and it looks for patterns and it gives you content based on its relevance to you, its engagement possibility, its popularity. Yeah. And why is that important? Well, that means that no feed is exactly the same. Okay. So that idea of their sense of normal gets shaped individually, while two teens might be on the same platform, their experience on that platform could be vastly different. Yeah. And we have to remember that, especially when we're talking about like consuming content, they see a lot of content maybe from people they're not following, but more so an algorithmic recommendation. So their world is really shaped on what the platform shows them. And teens can exist in these really specific niches online. So I've given a few, like book talk, study talk, Clean Talk, I'm on that. So it's where you watch people cleaning their houses. But yeah, it's simply put, you can exist in a space within a platform. And again, why do I think this is important? Well, every teen now has a unique feed, right? It's not all that all experiences will be the same, right? So for example, a teen might watch a lot of content related to study, and that can leave them feeling motivated and inspired, where someone else could watch a lot of content on achievements of other teens their age, and that might make them feel anxious or overwhelmed, right? So the kind of personalization can lead to this pressure, right? Their expectations and their self-image can be shaped by what they see online. And over time, that can lead to kind of shaping and influencing their identity. So, they might feel like they have to measure up to what they see online. So it really is important to note that the algorithm works in this way, and that everyone is having a different experience online on these platforms, right? Now, what can we do? All right, it's not all scary. You can definitely open up a dialogue on how the algorithm works, right? Helping them to realize that their online experiences don't necessarily represent, the whole world. And, it's just a filtered version. Empowering teens to think critically about the content that they see, right? Critical thinking is really important. Simply like asking questions like, which content keeps appearing? Why am I seeing this? That's a really important question. And how it makes me feel. You could ask that as well. And then, of course, teaching them how to decline content that doesn't work for them, right? Teaching them how to hide, mute, restrict content and creators that don't feel right for them. Even selecting not interested when you see a video on your For You page. So really kind of showing how curating the content that they see is a form of self-care. And it's really important for teens to understand that message. And we can, of course, help them do that. Now, I'm very aware I'm right on time. So I would love to keep talking about social media. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm chronically online, so I enjoy talking about it a lot. But I'd love to hear if you have any questions. Feel free to let me know. Hopefully, I didn't
Hi,
go
Claire.
too fast. Hello.
That was great. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you for putting that together.
No.
Please do follow her on LinkedIn, everyone, if you want to. Scan the QR code there. We have got a few questions that popped up. If you've got any more
Lovely.
questions, pop them in the Q&A. People are being a bit quiet today, Claire.
That's okay.
Welcome to the
if you do find social media a bit confusing, I do also have a newsletter about what's trending on social media, making use of my scrolling time myself. So feel free to make use of that, understand what's going on social media.
I'm going to try and get that up now.
But yes, I love talking about social media. It's one of my favorite things. Thank you, everyone. You were so engaging. I really enjoyed seeing all the comments. I wanted to read them all, but I was getting very distracted mid-presentation.
So tell us a bit about that. So people are asking a little bit, they've asked a few questions about the content on social media and what you feel about it. Is it kind of, is actual the content itself sometimes can be quite healthy for students, do you think? Is it?
It depends. Like I mentioned, the niches. Like, so I see a lot of content, like you can get a lot of motivational content. Like I think Study Talk is really interesting. It's where like they share tips and tricks of how to like study and learn. And it's a nice little motivation. You can even have like time lapses of people studying. And I know I find that quite useful if I have to sit down for a long period of time. So it kind of feels like you're sharing an experience with someone. There's a lot of other things. You'll see people exploring skills, which, when I was growing up, it definitely, you felt more like you're following kind of the crowd. But I definitely see a lot more positive interaction when people are doing different hobbies and things that are a little bit more unique. Seeing a lot of knitting online, which I think is really cool. Definitely wouldn't have been something I saw when I was going around social media back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. It's quite difficult. I mean, it's very difficult for teenagers to get the right feed,
Yeah.
based on their own behavior, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like as I mentioned with my dog video picture, the more kind of things that you're interacting with, the feed tends to be like, here you go. So my feed is just dogs, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have got a few things in here. Simon's from how can I subscribe to your newsletter? I did just trying to find it. I couldn't find it. I'll tell you what,
It's
Claire, if you
just
don't mind,
called the Chronically Online Chronicles.
the
So
what? Chronically
the Chronically Online Chronicle.
LinkedIn newsletter.
Yes, that's honestly that's how I felt because I scroll a lot in general for fun and for work. And I was like, I'll make use of explaining what's trending each week online.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like I'm getting a little bit more use out of my time when I scroll. I'm like, that's really useful. Maybe, a brand might be able to use it.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
exactly.
Thank you. I'll just put it in the chat box so you can get it now
Okay.
if you want to subscribe, everyone. All right. Thank you so much, Claire. I'll let you go. You've got
No
another session later.
worries. Yes, I'll be online later. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'll talk to you all soon.
Cheers, Claire. Bye. See ya. Righty. We've got another talk coming up. Wait a sec. Which is connected to the talk you've just seen from Claire. Let me just bring this up. Anna Hasper, are you there?
I am well, yes.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. I wanted to ask you, how many times have we done this, Anna? How many times have I introduced you? How many times have you been on screen with me?
Oh, I have no idea. Quite a lot of times, but not enough.
Not enough. No, not enough.
It's
It will never
always
be
so
enough.
enjoyable. It's so I'm always so happy to be here and share with all the teachers and work with you and just it's lovely.
Great. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you here, Anna. So, in case you didn't realize, this is Anna Hasper, passionate and experienced teacher, trainer, and author. Anna, if you could choose, all right, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could choose, you're going to be, I asked you a similar question earlier, but I phrased it differently. If you could choose for the rest of your life to be a trainer or a teacher, which is a teacher, which is a trainer, and a trainer is a teacher, but you know what I mean. If you could be a teacher trainer or an English language teacher for the rest of your life, which one would you go for? And it's going to be true. That will happen. Yeah. And that is actually, unfortunately, what's going to happen after this. Sorry.
And that is really difficult, right? Because we spoke about how I believe that your identity is fluid. So wherever you are, you sort of adapt your identity. And at heart, I'm a teacher. But I'm also thinking, getting older and wanting to have an impact and stuff. I sometimes feel that as a teacher trainer, I probably have a bigger impact because I can, the knowledge I have acquired over those years of teaching primary, secondary, adults, I can share that with others who can benefit from that. So more learners can eventually benefit of that knowledge. So if I have to make a choice now, maybe teacher trainer.
To have that large, so that's your MO, is it? To have the largest impact possible?
Not the largest impact, but to make people enjoy learning and to support teachers in that journey to motivation and enjoyability as well, because it's hard work. Particularly teenagers are really hard work, but it can also be super rewarding when you know sort of how to tweak and adapt and get on with your learners. I think that's really important, a relational aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe in our education as teacher trainers or teachers, there's not enough focus on building relationships with our students.
And it comes more naturally to some people than it does for others. Some people can be an excellent teacher, but still struggle to build that rapport or that connection with their students, can't they?
Yeah, and those social emotional competences, as you know, I'm really passionate about that topic. They are key. They make learning happen. It's not how well you know your grammar, it's how much safety and care you can bring into their classroom so they feel safe enough to try and make mistakes and actually grow.
Yeah. Build that resilience.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you, Anna. Well, I'm going to unshare, give you the screen, give you the stage. Have a nice session. I'll see you in about half an hour.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. And I hope everybody can see this. Quick, can you let me know in the chat
Yes,
box? You can,
please.
lovely, thanks, Will. Beautiful. So, right, first of all, I want to say thank you, Will. Thank you, Macmillan, for having me again. But most of all, thank you to all the teachers, because I see for some people it's early in the day, late in the day, and I know that this time of year is quite busy as well. So it's really nice to see that you've taken time to come and join this beautiful event for teenagers. I hope you enjoyed Lorna's talk, Claire's talk, and I'm linking a little bit to what Claire talks about today. So I'm going to start directly with a question to you. If you've been in my sessions before, you know that they're quite interactive. So I'm going to invite you to use the chat box and have a think. What word would you use to describe your teen learner's digital life? No wrong, no right, just your ideas. I'm really curious what you're going to share with me. Messy, daunting, intense, chaotic, trendy, busy, oh lovely, addictive, fast-paced, time-consuming, obsessive even, oh my goodness. Radka is saying FOMO, that fear of missing out, right? Pressurizing, Shakel, I don't know if I said it correctly, but skillful. Lost, really interesting. I quite often ask teachers this question as well. I also ask people around me, teens, adults, how would you describe this? Because I think a lot of us adults and teachers actually lean towards saying things like addictive, exhausting, pressurized, overwhelming. So it seems like we're very much aware of what's going on. It's quite different to what we might have experienced when we were younger. And I'm probably a bit like a dinosaur, because I think when I grew up, we didn't even have mobile phones. So in that way, it's very different if you compare it. So, okay, keep that thought in mind. We get back to that later. So what I want to do in this session is have a look at our audience. Yeah, what is so special about teenage learners? Then we're going to have a look at social media and the benefits and the risks. I'm not against social media at all. I think what Claire was saying about you just scroll. Yep, I think I'm guilty of that myself as well. But we need to be aware of what risks there are as well, because sometimes we need to help our teenage learners see those risks a little bit more. Then we're going to look at well-being, digital well-being, and hopefully I can give you some ideas that you can bring back to your classroom to help or support your learners in being well in the digital world. So I hope that sounds okay. We've got about, I don't know, 30 minutes, so let's get started. Good. So I'm going to ask you to complete this sentence for me in the chat box. What is so special about teen learners? Why are we looking so much at social media, AI? Why not so much with adults, maybe? Because this is a topic I read a lot about. I don't know if you've read the paper recently. In Australia, they're banning Instagram, for example, for 16 and under. The 10th of December, people that are 16 years or younger can no longer have access to Instagram. So there's a lot going on. So what do you think is so special about teenage learners? Ah, lovely, Aslan. Hormonal changes. They aren't settled, Shirikova. Ah, Lenka, indeed. They aren't big children, but they're also not small adults, rightly so. They can be quite tricky, Joanna's saying. And I think they think differently. I think there's always the generation gap, but of course, you have a very valid point there. They're open to new things, they're overexcited, different opinions. Zoo, they're vulnerable. Lovely. They think we are the enemy. Well, I think lots of things in that chat box are probably like a representation of what we all feel working or parenting teenagers. So indeed, they are going through a very unique developmental stage in life. As you all know, I don't have to tell you this, lots is changing in their body, but there's also a lot changing in their mind. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the brain, the neurological changes we might not see, but they are happening. For once, something is happening in the brain that they call pruning, which means the connections between certain areas in the brain disappear purely because they're no longer interested in that area. the areas they're interested in, those connections become stronger. So this is when they very much know, I don't want to do that anymore. This is not what I want to become in the future. I don't want to work in mathematics. I don't want to be an English teacher. So they're developing that identity very much there. Also, when you look at the brain, and I always have to bring my brain, and Aslan, you make a very good point there. When you look at the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that front of the brain, is still not fully developed. And as Aslan is saying, that's where we develop our planning, impulse control, decision making, our rational thinking. That is not fully developed till about mid-20s, late 20s. So their life is actually ruled by the emotions, and they come from that limbic system in the brain. So it feels good, we do it. It doesn't feel good, I don't want to do it. You might recognize that from your teenage learners, right? So that is going on in the brain, which means that the emotions are very intense, they respond quickly, they can be very unpredictable, but also it means they have less self-regulation. So when you have these devices, and as Claire said, there are all these algorithms, they keep scrolling maybe even more than us. Because we start to realize I should really do something else. This is not beneficial for me. They don't have those mechanisms in place yet. And as Lorna said as well, it's really developing those skills, empathy, social emotional skills. They are still developing those skills as well. Normally, I would say to my students, the brain is under construction. That's it. That's absolutely normal. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just what is happening in your body. On top of that, of course, as you all know as teachers, they're very much looking for their identity. Who am I? Who do I want to be? To which group do I want to belong? So it's that whole process of the adult is becoming less important, their peers are becoming more important, and they're very much looking for that peer validation. And when you go to Snapchat with those streaks, there becomes a bit of pressure because you have to correspond every day, right? But you want to belong to that tribe. So you're really looking at who you are, where do you belong? And as Zoo already said in the chat box, they are much more vulnerable because of all these changes going on in their body, in their mind. So there's lots happening in their life. They're very sensitive to feedback, particularly negative feedback, and their self-esteem can vary quite a bit as well. Yeah, so one moment they're really happy, the next moment you think, oh my goodness, they cannot stand me as a teacher. That's just what's happening in their brains. Now, on top of that, we live in a very different time. Yeah, I didn't grow up with any of these things, but like Facebook, we know all these icons. I don't need to talk about that. They are very much exposed to that powerful attention-grabbing device with all these apps the whole day. As Claire already said, it's very easy to get sucked in and to end up doom scrolling. Because I think for teenagers, it's not that social media is part of their life. It is their life. It is real life. Their life is online. Their friendships, their connections, their emotions, their learning, it's all online. And in this webinar, when I talk about all the data and all the numbers later, I'm really looking at social media. So I'm not looking at the internet. I'm not looking at WhatsApp. I'm really looking at these apps that have lots of likes and comments, video content that doesn't stop, notifications that beep at you, in-app messages, and very much that content is guided by the algorithms. We've got nothing to do with that, Mr. Google or whoever has. Yeah, so that is really what I want to look at with you, that social media. So good. Now, like I said before, I'm absolutely not against social media because I love it myself as well. And there are benefits, I think, as well of that social media use. So I don't know what you remember from Claire's webinar. Can you think of any benefits of social media use for your learners? Anything that is really helpful because they need to develop these skills to get on in the world, and we cannot ignore that. They're sharing their experiences, study talk or study talk. Yes, socializing, Michaela is saying, socializing online, right? Social learning to some extent in a different format than what we were used to. Great. Yeah, different point of views, Marco. They can really share and learn from other people what they think, what their life is like in China or in Thailand as compared to what they have in Greece. Matea, indeed, they're broadening the horizons, connecting. Teresa, lovely to see you here. Yes, totally, the social connections and that exposure to other cultures. I think that is absolutely invaluable. When you look at research, and the research I'm going to show you comes from an American research project that was done in October 2024, 1,359 teenagers and parents were interviewed. And I've picked this because they looked at social media in particular. And a lot of them indeed felt socially connected, much more. They were excited they could follow their interest. Because of following their interest, they felt there was personal growth. And also, as Claire said before, when we have that private posting, you can experiment with your identity. How do you want to come across, right? And you can actually build that community, Marco. And it really allows for creative expression. As you can see here, 74% of teens feel more connected by using this social media. So that's a really positive thing. What you see as well, the third point in that graph, they feel like they have people who support them through tough times, 52%. And this is really interesting because these are the stats from 2024. I went back from 2022 and that was a lot higher. That was 67%. So something is changing in the awareness or in the use of social media because that has dropped quite significantly with 15%. So good. What else have we got? And of course, social media also gives that sense of autonomy. We're not hanging over teenagers at home to see what they post, how they spell, what they write. It allows for self-expression, and linguistically, I think that is a real opportunity because I know when my students post, they want to make sure it's spelled correctly. They want to make sure that it looks all right. So they check online. They ask me how to say something if they make a video. So there are lots of positives there as well. They share their work, Aslan, yeah, indeed. And that is lovely, right? They share part of themselves which other people can learn from or enjoy, like origami, definitely. However, and we may be more aware of that than our learners, there are also some risks. So I don't know what sort of risks you see. I think you gave me some before already when you said it was overwhelming for teenagers. They were obsessed with social media. So what sort of risks do you see for your teenagers? Addiction, Makura is saying. Yeah, it's a big word, but we actually do use that word. Loneliness, and this is really, Malika, very interesting because we're more connected, but there is actually more social isolation, lack of sleep as well. Dangerous challenges, the content, we have cybercrime, we have bullying, indeed, and we have harmful content, we have privacy issues, misleading information, loads of those things. I'm not going to talk about that, but very much true, yes. Yes, and that fact of the perfect life, right? That pressure, that self-esteem is affected by that. So I think the biggest issue that we can see happening in the brain, as you know, I love my brain, so I'm going back to that, is a dopamine reward loop. This generation, and particularly the Gen Alpha generation born in 2010 and later, they don't know any better than social media. They grew up with devices and social media, and they have a very different way of working with that. They look at it, it's pleasurable, it's enjoyable, that creates that dopamine in your brain, you feel good, you look at something else, and you don't know when to stop. Like what Claire was saying with the doggy videos, I love cats. When I see one video with cats, I go to the next one and the next one. And suddenly I realize, oh my goodness, where has my life gone? Because it's an hour later. Yeah, so the pleasurable feeling that you get because of dopamine never gives them satisfaction. So it's really hard to stop. And the algorithms, they feed you what you want to see. So that's why we get all that doom scrolling. And indeed, because of that, we very easily get sleep deprivation, we get social deprivation, fragmented attention. I think that is a huge concern for us teachers. They are not used to focusing anymore. And just an interesting fact, when you look at this, notifications, the beeps, the buzzers, yeah, that is a real issue. Any idea how many messages teenagers get, the notifications, in 24 hours? Any guesses? I was actually shocked when I found this out. I had to dig deep, but I found it somewhere. Well, Renata, luckily not millions, but they get on average, the American teenager, oh, you're all going in the right direction. It's not 2000, it's about 197. So Andrew, well done. 197 in a day means that it's about 8 messages an hour. Let's say every 6 or 7 minutes, you get something. That doesn't help you focus, that doesn't help you learn. And I don't know what you're like, but I've got days that it's lying next to me that I check every 5 or 6 minutes because I have no idea what happened to my brain, but there should be a message coming in. So this is really overwhelming, and it really affects our attention span, which is a real issue for learning. So the overall well-being is affected of our teens. And that research, I'm going back to this American research for now to show you some of the effects, like the pressure they feel, how it affects their sleep. And this is self-reported. They've asked teenagers to give, do you feel there is pressure? Do you feel it affects your sleep? Yeah, so any idea of any percentages? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think before I show you the percentages, and then you can have a look if anything surprises you. Lilia, indeed, it's a permanent distractor, right? Sometimes I have to put my phone in the kitchen because it drives me nuts. I cannot focus. Turning off notifications, I think that is the first thing that we really need to teach our students, or hopefully the parents do that with them, because you're not alone dealing with this, right? They've got parents and hopefully brothers and sisters, hopefully they read about it. We've got the government in certain countries banning or putting phones in pouches. Good, let me go and show you these numbers. So 31% feels pressured to post on social media. It's maybe not the highest of numbers, but feeling pressured is not something that teens should experience at that age. Academic pressure, social media pressure, body pressure, they have enough pressures in life. And 45%, so that's nearly half of all teenagers, feel that the amount of sleep they get is affected. They take it to the bedroom, they scroll before they go to sleep. And this, I start this for you, problematic smartphone usage. This is also covering the internet, not just social media. This research was done in the UK on 657 teenagers. It's a very small project going on. King's College is doing this in London. It looks very small, but it's only about 657 people from 2024. April 2024. I reckon if they repeat that research this year with a larger populations, it might be higher. And this is an interesting one as well. 25% of teenage girls feel that social media is hurting their mental health. When we look at boys, it was only 14%. And I'm not saying that boys are more resilient, but there is, of course, a lack of awareness could be, but also there's a different level of development. Girls are mentally more reflective when they're 12 and 13, boys 14 and 15. So that sensitive age is a little bit different, but there is a quarter of the girls that is now saying this is not healthy for me. And they actually spent more time on social media. So 45% of teens are saying they spent too much. That is massively up from the year before. Let me check my numbers. That was 32% in 2022. So this shows, and this is amazing, that teens are becoming more aware of the fact that they're possibly spending too much time on social media, which is a positive, right? Because it's not a bad thing, but what does it do? It's not what it adds. I think what we need to look at is what it takes away from life. And that is that social interaction, that face-to-face interaction. So when you look at children before 2010, you could call them play-based children. They were playing in the playground as teenagers. They were going out, hanging out, and having a Coca-Cola, ice cream, whatsoever. They were interacting. When you interact with another human being, you read their body language. You start to learn, oh, they feel like this. You attune. You develop empathy. Those social and emotional skills we develop in our childhood. Right? The phone-based childhood people born after 2010, that Gen Alpha, they have a lot of social interaction, but it's often one-to-one and through a screen. So they're not developing so much of that social awareness. When is somebody upset? When are they happy? Because they're not really engaging physically with other people so much. So that social learning, which is typical for human beings, that social learning is impacted, and that leads to more challenges in the classroom. So if you feel that your teenagers are completely different than 20 years ago, yeah, I think you have a valid point there, because they are not so used to socially connecting in class face to face, right? So it all affects much more than just being online. It affects their mental well-being, their emotional well-being, their social well-being. So when we talk about digital well-being, I don't know if that's the right term for me, because that means being well online, being safe, as we spoke about privacy, content, that sort of things. I think we need to look at this more holistically and need to talk about being well in a digital world. And that doesn't mean they shouldn't use those devices. They need to learn how to use them in a wise way. But I think it's important that our students get given the tools by their parents, by us, to say, I'm going to choose not to use this now. So really, how can we help them use it in a way that enhances their life and supports their well-being, instead of the phone leading my life, if you know what I mean. We want them to feel good and function well, and that means they don't always need that phone. Indeed, as it's important, but we have to use it wisely, right? So I think the first thing is awareness raising. How aware are you of your own habits when you use your phone? If you ask me how often do you check, I wouldn't know exactly. I need to go and count that. So one of the things, of course, you can have this app on your phone that tells you about your screen time every day. I think that's really useful. But that might also be when you're reading a book or an article or something interesting on your phone. So one thing I've been doing with my learners is just to make them aware. I like you to predict in the pink boxes how much time you spend every day on these apps. And it's fascinating. They write down their predictions, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever. On average, girls spend a bit more time, it seems, 5.4 hours on social media a day. Boys about 4.8 hours. Again, that is an American population. But then they come back next week and they have checked. And quite often the actual hours are quite different. So this could be your first entry into how much time do we spend. They could interview each other, they could collect data, boys, girls, I don't know, smartphones, Samsung smartphones, Apple, whatever, compare and contrast essay. Or they can make presentations. Why do you spend more time on Facebook or Snapchat versus X, for example? Yeah, so it's really, you can do so much with this, but it's teaching them not only the language, but it's also making them self-aware of their behavior. Because to be honest, I'm sometimes surprised how many minutes have passed before I put my phone down. And I think we're all a little bit guilty of that. So maybe you want to use it for yourself too. I definitely am going to do this in the new year. The second thing I think is really important, and particularly as a primary school teacher, we always look very much at values. What kind of values are important for you in life? Now, I don't know if you want to give me a value that you think that's really important, that we live with this. For me, it's kindness. That's a really important value. Maybe responsibility as well. Sympathy, Maria. Oh, I love that. Empathy. Compassion. We're all going in that beautiful direction. That empathy map is absolutely amazing. from the design thinking. So good, we list them or we teach them depending on the level of language your learners have. You can teach values, you can give them a map and they can select 4 or 5, and then we can go back to their favorite apps and they can identify which values does that app actually enhance. So I use this app and that supports or makes these respect, for example, Teresa, this app really makes showing respect to someone easier. But we could also think, of course, that the downside, some of these apps maybe make those values that I have a little bit harder or worse. And then we get, of course, into cyberbullying. The whole discussion can come from there. But I think the most important thing for us is really to discuss with our learners, what could we do to stick to the values that we just decided are important to us while we use those apps? And this is, I don't want to say prevent cyberbullying, but you can make students aware if kindness is important and respect is important. How can you say that you don't like what they're wearing in a nice, respectful way? Or maybe how can you say, okay, maybe I'm not going to say this, yeah, because I'm responsible and I don't need to share that. So that's a really lovely activity. Lots of language here. And then I'm not going to show you this, but there's a beautiful TED Talk, which you might want to watch yourself first before you're going to watch it. I'm just going to see if I can give you the link in the chat box. And this particular person worked for Google, and his talk is all about how a handful of people in a room control the minds of millions or billions every day. So it's really a good listening task. You don't need to do the whole TED Talk. You can pick out little bits and get them to think about, so what is the impact of those algorithms? We only get the echo chamber. We only get the news we want to hear. We only get the sort of feeds, cats or dogs, that we want to see. And awareness raising of that, I think, is really, really the first stage in giving them those tools to take care of their own behavior online. So that brings me to that second slot, which is really practicing self-care. And of course, self-care, we physically, we want them to be away from the phone, move their bodies, emotionally, socially, mentally, developmentally. But I'm going to stick with these apps first. And we have identified how much time we spend. And it's too much, we feel. So what can we do? And one activity I really love is my change charts, because I always love doing some art and creative stuff in my sessions. Get them to think about a digital habit they want to change. For me, that might well be taking my phone into the bedroom and just quickly looking at Instagram before I go to sleep. And that quickly turns into about 45 minutes and it's midnight again. Not very good for my sleep. Yeah. Why is this important to you? And then we're going to explore, how do you feel about this change? Are you willing to start it? Are you motivated? Because if it's a must, it's probably going to be difficult, right? Then we're going to think about what actions can we take to change this habit, to stop this habit, or to start a healthier habit. And I think the last one is really important as well. Accountability. Who or what can help you stick to this habit? And that could be putting your phone in the kitchen before you go to the bedroom so it's not near you. So little things like that, we're giving them some tools to control that use. And if you say this is too language heavy, they can talk about it in the language they have and they can draw this process for you. Yeah, so the example you have here, I want to use Zoom less because it is on the screen, it gives me a headache. How do I feel about it? A little bit sad because I like seeing my friends, but also we can call somebody so we don't have that eye strain the whole time on the screen. And who can help me? My other friends can support me in doing that. Yeah, or the time setting. Yeah, I don't know if it's used for Aslan. I think we have to find a way that works for us, right? So I love this change chart if you want to work with that with your students. And as Claire was talking about as well before, that critical thinking, and this is not so much about my behavior of posting as well as my behavior of responding to what I see. It's all in the perfect world. And sometimes we read something and we think, not sure what to do with this. So these questions, what did they write? The content, who actually wrote this? And the agenda question, what did they write it for? What is the purpose of posting that? Then we can think about the quality. Is it friendly? Is it emotional? Is it thoughtful? Is it constructive? Or maybe is it bot-like? ChatGPT, who knows? Is it actually accurate? And with that, I mean, is it true? And if they think that is true, what is the evidence? And then we can think, okay, how appropriate is this message for me to respond to share, or should I just ignore it? And I think looking at that hopefully takes a little bit of that pressure away of our students, and it might affect them a little bit less because it's so overwhelming, as you said before. And the other thing, creating a well-being sheet. And this just goes back to self-care. What do you already do in life to take care of yourself? You're not always on your phone, I hope. So they come up with actions. You could give them a poster, you give them cards, you could give them words, or they can write lists themselves. And then they can decide which of those things can I do more? Maybe being social, maybe being more physical. These are the two I want to focus on more. And what actions could I use there to actually make sure I get more physical activity or social practice? They select them, they can write them on their well-being shield. If you want to do art, like I said, I love arty stuff, but you can also just put it on a Padlet and the whole class can look at ideas. So they can just go there if they feel I need to do something else, need to get away from my phone. What can I do to make myself feel better and avoid that screen? Yes, fresh air, going for a walk, dancing to some music, do some drawing. We all have our ideas, so why not share them? And if you have a creative lot, they can just make posters. For this, Canva is absolutely amazing. They can use technology. They can make some amazing posters. But I was at a school yesterday where they simply did it with old-fashioned glue and scissors and colors, and it was beautiful. And they made a poster with 5 tips for being well. And as you can see, it's about screen time, it's about staying active. They are their ideas, and they come up with their own rules for when, where, and what. So overall, I hope I've given you some ideas. I'm very much aware of time. I hope that we as teachers can contribute a little bit and help our students create that culture of digital mindfulness. Yeah, it's not that we don't want them to use it. It's part of life. It's fun. It's engaging. But our students need to have the choice over that technology, when to use it, when not to use it, instead of social media controlling them. So if you want to read a bit more, a book I highly recommend is The Anxious Generation from Jonathan Haidt. He's a social psychologist, very interesting, all about the brain. The second one is about how to deal with pressure and common sense education. They have a lot of websites, they have a lot of PowerPoints and a lot of materials for you to actually find activities that you can use with your students on this particular topic. I hope I've given you some ideas. Any questions, feel free to ask. And if you want to connect, feel free to find me on LinkedIn afterwards. Thank you so much for all your activity in the chat box.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very, very much for putting that together for us.
It was a
Wonderful.
pleasure. Really interesting topic, right?
Such an interesting topic. It was just, it's such a can of worms, isn't it, as well? There's so many different things you can say about this.
Yeah. And I have to say, Will, I went down, I think, the internet rabbit hole because I couldn't stop looking and looking, and 5 hours later, I was still looking. It's really fascinating.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And I think just, I mean, I'd love to get, I could watch an entire conference on kind of social media and how young people are growing up with it. Just that as a subject, because it's just so different from, I can only speak for myself, but for my youth, it wasn't there. And it's just such, it's quite hard, isn't it, as a person from our, if you don't mind me saying, our generation, to see, you know, that we don't really have that insight. We don't know what it's like to grow up as a person in that environment. And it's one thing that I think we're, as adults, maybe struggling with. We don't really have that insight. We don't know what it's like, but we really want to help, support.
And this is the interesting thing, right? We are supposedly having some self-control because we're adults, but how addictive is this even for us?
Yeah, I'd like to challenge that. And people who think they're in control of their social media, let's see those stats on their phone, see how much they are using it. I mean, I'm far from addictive myself, but I use it too much. You know, it pulls me in. Anyway,
Right.
any questions for Anna? We haven't got any questions actually for Anna just yet. I'll give them a minute to think of a few questions for you, Anna. If you wanted them to take away one thing from your talk today, what would it be?
I think that the English language classroom is such an amazing place to integrate these topics. And I think I hope that we can do that, because it's not about telling them how to behave, but it's giving them the option so they have that awareness and they can choose how they want to use that tool. Because I really think that we need to control social media, and social media by now is controlling our students.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a fertile place, isn't it, for anything really, for the English language classroom.
Social emotional skills, global skills, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Absolutely, depending on the scenario. Some people have got remits, but generally speaking, they need space to communicate, don't they?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Anna. I'll let you go. You got, oh, we have had some questions. Hold on. Do we have time? All right. Got time for one?
Yeah, of course. Then I'm going to have a nap the next one.
Okay. So Marco's, yeah, we will. Then we'll have another bunch. It always happens that way. People just, they get engrossed and they go, oh no, I have got things to ask. And then they ask at the end. So we have got another one as well. So how can we redirect students' attention toward content they enjoy and that supports their personal development without them finding it boring? I think that's a really good point. There is some really valuable content on social media. Claire and I were speaking about this earlier. There's some very valuable content out there that can genuinely help people and help young people with their own development. How to guide them towards that and not the bad stuff.
I think when you look at project work, right, we often give students a choice. Like we have a project, you can, even in differentiation, you give them a choice. You can present it, you can write it, you can record it. So I think if we do a project on something, why not get them to choose the topic and get them to come to you? You could even do A, B, C, D, or E, because I know what my students are interested in, and you pick one of those.
Yeah.
There are options, but I think it's very similar in the brain for choice, so they might be motivated. But why not ask students, what do you want to present on? And then, okay, go and research that topic and create something and content generation on that topic as well.
Yeah.
So say, finding out what they like and giving them a choice to bring that to the classroom.
Brilliant. Yeah, lovely. Okay, quick fire, 2 questions for you, Anna. What is your opinion on banning phones in schools?
Interesting. When you read this book, it's actually on the slide that Aslan or Fabi, somebody was asking for. You read about the anxious generation. You start to understand that play-based versus phone-based, how much impact it has on students' social emotional development, that you start to think, yeah, that is probably a valid thing to do, because that fragmented attention, you cannot learn if you shift between different things every 5 minutes. So I don't think it's a bad thing. What I do like then is that we say, okay, we're going to do an activity online, get your phone out of the pouch and use it for this activity in class.
So you think they should be able to bring it in case it's needed for pedagogical reasons?
Yeah, and what you see in the UK, they have these amazing pouches. They seal the pouch and they can open it when they need it. And I think that is probably a wise thing, just to stop them from checking it every 6 minutes.
Yeah. Be nice if we could do it a slightly nicer way rather than having them to lock their phones in a bag, you know.
But the interesting thing, Will, is when you look in The Guardian, there was an interview on BBC actually with a few students as well, and they said it was a kind of freedom they had never experienced. They didn't feel the pressure to check and to like. So the students don't seem to be too negative about it.
Because there wasn't that external social pressure to check, because you say, I can't check, can I? I've got to do what's going on around me instead. That's a lovely point, Anna. I like that. Okay, brilliant. I didn't know that. All right, we're going to let you go. You've got another session later on. Yes. Let's unpack it again after that one, shall we?
Lovely. Thank you.
Cheers, Anna. See you.
Cheers.
All righty. Couple of things to share with you lot. 1 second. I need to click 5,000 buttons before I can actually share this with you. No, I'm only joking. I'm done. And then Gabby, pop that up. Thank you. Good stuff. Cheers, Gabby. All right. So what a set of talks. Weren't they great? I think Macmillan chose very well for this particular event, as we always do. They were great. So on the subject of social and emotional learning, we are doing a survey at the moment. We're doing a study we've got a whole team that's dedicated to market research and understanding ELT and the industry and the teachers in it and the students and the language and the pedagogy and everything. I could keep listing, but I won't. At the moment, we're doing a study on social emotional learning. We'd like your input, if you don't mind, if you're able to spend a couple of minutes answering some questions about it. You don't have to. You'll still get your certificate, you'll get your goodie bag, you'll get everything. But if you don't mind, could you go to the link that we're popping up now, if you don't mind? There we go. Thank you. Gabby, SEL survey. You don't have to answer it just this second, but maybe open the tab so that you can open it when you've got 5 minutes later on. Every person that fills that in, we will donate £2 to the Global Education Network Teach for All, which is a space where teachers and institutions can collaborate with each other, share resources, and make education more equitable. So it's really for a good cause. We're not just asking you to do it for nothing. We're trying to learn from you, but at the same time, share that with the wider world and also contribute to the Teach for All organization as well. So please do take a look. The link is just there at the bottom. Gabby, if you could put the link somehow in the chat box too. You can see at the bottom, it says SEL survey. You should be able to see that pop up now. Maybe we should, if you could pop it up again, actually, Gabby, I think it might have disappeared. There you go. So it's on the link just there. Oh, thank you, Anna. Is it there? Yeah, there it is. It's there. Can I go back to full screen? No, it's going to just show that stuff up there. Brilliant. Okay. Great. And within 2 weeks, you'll get an email from us. If you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, you will not. You need to register to get these bits from us, please. We're doing another session later on tonight. So if you register for that and then come along, even if you've seen the whole thing, if you register and then just come for a little bit, we'll know that you've come and you'll get this. The certificate will come by email, and the goodie bag will also be on that email with the recordings and the presentation, but we're actually going to give you that now as well. So if you don't mind, Gabby, just putting the link up everywhere for the goodie bag. There we go. It says your virtual goodie bag, so you can access that goodie bag now. It's got the 5 design thinking stages that Lorna took us through earlier. So that's quite good. So I don't know what you do in how you're set up, but I used to have a folder with sort of those plastic sleeves in it. And my opening one was always something I wanted to work on. I had Demand High. You remember Demand High? Underhill and Scrivener stuff. Sort of just the questions that you can ask to poke and prod and tease more from your students. Anyway, this is a great one for that. So you could just put this at the front to remind yourself of what Lorna took you through and to how to perhaps integrate elements of design thinking into your everyday before you went full in maybe and did the projects as well. Anyway, there's a poster in there. I think you can download that right now if you go to that. So do go and take a look at that. Any problems after 2 weeks, not before, if you don't mind. After 2 weeks, we will have sent it within 2 weeks. So if you don't have it, there is a problem. Email us at eltwebinars@macmillaneducation.com. Finally, we've got another event in 2 weeks. 10th of December, Adults Day. We did Young Learners Day. This is Teens Day, and we've got Adults Day coming. Lindsay is talking about the modern course book and how you can cherry pick from a course book to make it most relevant to your learners. He's aiming at courses at university. So if you're doing an English language course at university, you might want particular elements of language learning that you may not want if you were doing a different course of study. Karolina Kotorowicz-Jasinska is talking about supplementing course books. Say yes or no. Do you supplement your course book? Answers in the chat box. Do you supplement your course book? I'm guessing a lot of you do. Carolyn has got some ideas to share with you of how to do that more efficiently and better if you need that help. Absolutely, Juana. God, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Carolyn is going to show you some cutting edge ways to do that more efficiently. And as I said, better than what you're doing now. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not assuming anything. Carolina Koepetetzel was talking to us about memory retention, the retrieval of information and how our memory works and why that matters for education. An absolutely outstanding talk. I saw it at ITEFL this year. Can't recommend it enough. You can register now at the link at the bottom where it says upcoming events, or just go to macmillanenglish.com. Macmillan English. wellbeing.com. And you'll see it on that front page there to register. And that's it. We're done. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it and learnt plenty. Keep an eye out on those teens and what they're doing online. Be there for them. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everyone. See ya.